young time on stage? Did you?
Yeah, well, he said, well, what are you guys, what's your music roots? And we all got the same roots, you know. There's sort of blues out of Memphis and Mississippi and stuff. And he said, well, you know, do you do a lot of rehearsals? And of course, Led Zeppelin didn't really show up until the gig was almost over before we actually arrived. In those days, and so we didn't do many sound checks, but when we did, I used to like to sing in those big arenas his songs because they sounded even bigger. So he said, well, which song do you like? And well, I said, well, I like loads of them, but I do sing this song, Love Me. You know, treat me like a fool. So we talked and talked, and then we said goodbye, shook hands, and said we'd all meet again. And I went out in the corridor and was heading for the elevator, and suddenly he swings round the door, and he says, hey, Robert. And he started singing to me, and then I started singing to him, and then we were all crying.
For him, he was doing something like Reconsider Baby, or whatever it was, the Lowell Fulson song. Yeah. And he stopped it, and he said, wait a minute, we've got Led Zeppelin in here tonight, we've got to get this. I mean, so I mopped the tears away, and we got the nod that we were going to meet him afterwards, and we went to the hotel.
We met him after a show, and we went to the top floor of the whatever the cheap hotel was. A couple of gorillas at the elevator, and they moved us down into this kind of holding station, where it was one of those long suites where a door opens into another door, like Get Smart or whatever. It's just on and on and on, you know. And the whole place was full of Sandra Dee, sort of Stella Stevens kind of, which is perfect for me. A pencil skirt and a beehive, and I've gone from some white stilettos.
Whoa, look at the way he moves. And I mean, he was just going around chairs like... He was so cool. And I mean, of course, he wasn't supposed to be cool, but he was... You know, a bit like us, I suppose. It's like and he came over to us, and we stood in a circle for about 2 or 3 hours talking, and people kept coming by from his retinue, from his entourage, thinking...
Paths must have eventually crossed with Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, spectacular for us, you know, absolutely amazing. He was involved with the same agents that we had at the time in the 70s, and he wanted to know who this bunch of guys were who was selling tickets quicker than him. And we wanted to know who we were too. And so he played the Forum in LA, and I'd seen him a couple of times. I was really so in awe of him as a singer. And I loved the way he could send himself up, you know. I mean, when you've been doing, you know, we're our one-trick ponies singers generally, and if you can't see the humor in it, and he did.
Where did it come from? It came from him, and he still got it. He still was into that whole Delta thing. He, you know, Good Rockin' Tonight, all that stuff that got him going in the first place. But he also knew, and he had a great sense of humor, and he knew that he was locked in this self-parody. I mean, when the songs dried up, when Lieber and Stoller and Pomus and Schumann, when that kind of whole era of creative writing started to wane and things changed, I didn't want to hear Elvis doing a Neil Diamond song. Right. I wanted him, I mean, it was bad enough him coming out of the army and doing Are You Lonesome Tonight, you know. I wanted him to stay wild, to give me all those edges, that kind of, that howl that he had. But, you know, he was just amazing and spectacular, and it was just that he really opened the door to my whole love of music. And because of him, and because of the choice of his material, I found out Smiley Lewis, you know, I found all those great singers, and now all these box sets that come out, some of the stuff that he did in the 60s and was quite so well crafted. Yeah. Hank Garland's guitar playing, the stuff at RCA in Nashville, I mean, the recording of it, and his humor in the middle of it all is great. So it was a dream come true to meet him, but it was also just by chance that I heard him, and it affected me the way it did.
Well, you know, and I think that's the thing, that the more time that goes by, the easier it is for people to get confused about how important Elvis's moment was, because, you know, because there's always the feeling that, well, they're not giving enough credit to Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and Little Richard and so on, which is true. Right. But Elvis rearranged the mainstream. If Elvis hadn't taken it from How Much Is That Doggy in the Window and
Yeah.
turned it into this is mainstream popular music, then Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis would not have had the opportunity to get through it all.
Sure, and he was also white, which was
Oh, that's right.
crucial, because that gave him the foot in the door that maybe Alan Freed was trying to do
Yeah.
with Chuck and Bo and all that sort of stuff. But he was, and he was a great-looking guy, and he actually, that physical representation, by the time he got to England, guys would like hit themselves on the head, bang, what's going on? Who's this human being? It was fantastic in the middle of all that crap.